As inflation continues to ease, the price we're paying for our food is still going up. Part of the reason is that because many farmers, they're struggling to stay afloat.
Have you noticed your grocery cart getting lighter, but your receipt getting heavier? If not yet, maybe you haven't seen what's really happening behind the gates of America's farms. Farmers are destroying their own crops, burning entire fields. Not out of protest, but because selling it means losing more than keeping it. Tomatoes, corn, soybeans, the very staples that built our food system now being abandoned. Why rock-bottom prices, sky-high costs, and labor vanished overnight after a wave of immigration crackdowns. But the damage doesn't end in the fields. Starting July, many of your everyday grocery items won't just be out of stock. They'll be priced out quietly, painfully, and permanently. Here are 8 essential foods you might want to stock up on now before your local supermarket teaches you the true value of $1. Eggs. No one ever imagined that the most ordinary thing in an American kitchen, the egg would become the most unpredictable item on the shelf. In 2024, egg prices skyrocketed because of the avian flu. But by mid-2025, the fear isn't the virus anymore. It's the fact that people are giving up. Thousands of egg farms have scaled back operations or shut down entirely. The reason is painfully simple: the cost of raising hens, feeding them, heating the barns, transporting the goods, all of it has gone up. Meanwhile, the price buyers are willing to pay. It hasn't kept pace. In Iowa, once known as the egg capital of America, many farms are now just rows of empty barns with the wind blowing through abandoned coops. The farmers who used to wake up at 4 a.m. to collect eggs now sit on their porches staring at stacks of bills, too afraid to invest in even one more chicken. They're not asking for sympathy, they're asking for a fair market. And that fair market, it's been gone for a while. Still, most people think I'm not a farmer. Why should I care? Just look at your latest grocery bill. If you're paying over $5 for a dozen eggs, that's not because someone's scamming you. It's because the entire system is breaking down. Grocery chains no longer order in bulk because supply isn't reliable. Distributors are hiking transportation fees, and the final person left holding the bag is you. Worse, schools, nursing homes, and hospitals have begun adjusting their menus. Hard-boiled eggs are being cut. Fried egg portions are shrinking. Not because they want to, but because their budgets can't handle the new prices. An egg, once the symbol of affordable nutrition, is slowly becoming a luxury for low-income families. And this is just the beginning. Because if something as simple and essential as an egg, the go-to solution when there's no meat on the table, is now too expensive, then it's time to worry about the foods that require more than one hen, more than one day, and a whole lot more money to make it to your plate. Beef and poultry. A cut of beef used to be the highlight of an American dinner. A plate of fried chicken used to be an easy go-to for families of all incomes, but now they're slowly becoming conditional items. You've probably heard the usual reasons: drought-soaring feed costs a shortage of slaughterhouse workers. But the truth on the ground is harsher. Across cattle ranches in Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas, thousands of cows are being sold off early. Ranchers simply can't afford to keep feeding them. On paper, it's called a herd restructuring. But for many of these ranchers, it feels more like a farewell to the work they've dedicated their lives to. Empty feedlots and grasslands without hoofprints. That's the quiet grief you don't see. And you, the consumer, are the final link where this shockwave finally lands. Processing plants across the Midwest are operating far below capacity due to labor shortages. The silent workforce, mostly immigrants, has been swept away by crackdowns. That's driving up production costs. The result: the meat you see at your local store is not only more expensive, but there's less of it. Some suburban areas are already reporting frequent shortages, especially over the weekends. The strain is hitting restaurants too. They're cutting portion sizes, raising prices, or dropping items from the menu altogether. One restaurant in Arizona, known for its $6.99 roasted chicken plate, now hangs a sign that says temporarily unavailable due to unstable input costs. The owner shared, "We can't sell a dish that loses money before the bird even hits the fryer." At this point, it's not just about whether meat is pricey or cheap. It's about whether you can still put a complete nutritious meal on the table. Because when both red meat and white meat are getting squeezed from every direction in the supply chain every day, Americans are left with fewer options. And as options shrink, so does the country's collective access to basic nutrition. And you know what's next to feel the pressure? The things we once considered staples of a budget-friendly meal now quietly crumbling under the weight of unpredictable harvests and a farming community that's just too tired to keep going. Cereal. No one ever thought that a box of cereal, once the symbol of a simple, nutritious breakfast, would become something out of reach. Cereal isn't just a food, it's a habit. It's the rushed prep of a single mom before work. It's the only breakfast some kids get before school. It's the choice of many seniors who can't spend much time in the kitchen. But today, the price of that familiar box is climbing by the day, and not because companies are chasing extra profit. The root of the issue lies in the fields of those stretches of wheat corn and oats that once seemed endless. This year's harvests in North Dakota and Kansas have dropped sharply, not just because of extreme weather, but because many farmers simply chose not to plant. It's not laziness. It's a cold calculation. The cost of fertilizer, labor, and equipment now outweighs the profits they can earn at current market prices. American agriculture used to survive on grit, but grit doesn't pay the electric bill. It doesn't cover rising loan payments, and when the growers step away the first to feel it are the people at the grocery store. The cereal supply chain is already unraveling. Processing plants in Ohio and Pennsylvania are reporting critical raw material shortages, forcing them to scale back production. One major cereal company in the East says it's now importing grain from Canada at nearly 1.5 times the cost of domestic supply. The result, higher prices and less product in the box. Worse yet, food assistance programs like SNAP haven't caught up with the rising costs. Some families say they now have to stretch a single box of cereal to last a full week when it used to be gone in 3 days. A box of cereal, once seen as the go-to budget breakfast, has become something families now stand in front of and think twice before buying. And if cereal, a food that's mass-produced, shelf-stable, and easy to process, is already in crisis, what does that mean for the rest? For the foods that demand more time, more care, and depend on a farming workforce that's already worn thin. Beans and soybeans. Beans have always been a humble food, simple, cheap, easy to store, and packed with protein. In some of America's hardest times, people lived on beans, and yet now even this symbol of survival is quietly becoming a luxury. It sounds absurd until you look at what's happening across the Corn Belt, America's top soybean-producing region. In 2025, thousands of farmers made a startling choice. They didn't plant beans, not because the soil was bad, not because seeds were unavailable, but because the math just didn't make sense anymore. As one farmer in Indiana put it, I planted 100 acres of beans and didn't make enough to pay for fertilizer. Raw soybean prices on global markets dropped at one point due to high stockpiles. But here's the twist. The price of bean-based products on store shelves kept climbing. Domestic supply became unstable, transportation costs shot up due to a shortage of truckers and shipping containers, and processing costs soared with inflation. Americans buy canned beans, dry beans, peanut butter, not for gourmet reasons, but because they're affordable and filling. But now when a can of cannellini or a bag of dry black beans can jump 10-20% in just 2 months, families are starting to ask, how do we keep meals nutritious without draining our wallets? But beans aren't just a staple for tight budgets. They're the backbone of a massive food industry, from soy milk and meat substitutes to livestock feed. When planting shrinks, the entire value chain feels the squeeze. Products you wouldn't expect, protein bars, supplements, processed snacks, all begin to shift quietly and painfully. And through it all, no one's really talking about the people growing those beans. They're not making headlines. They're not marching in protest. They're quietly filing for bankruptcy or putting their farms up for sale. Because a field left fallow this season might be land abandoned for good. You might not see beans vanish from your grocery store just yet, but you'll start noticing your favorite brands shrinking their packages, bumping up their prices, or disappearing from shelves altogether. And when that moment comes, Americans will finally understand even the poorest meal can be wiped out by a breakdown you never saw coming. And if plant-based protein is already this shaky, just imagine what's next for fresh vegetables crops that rely entirely on nature's mood and razor-thin margins for storage and transport. Canned and frozen vegetables. Americans used to take pride in having access to fresh vegetables year-round, whether in the dead of winter or in the driest corners of the country, all thanks to frozen veggie bags and canned staples like sweet corn peas, diced carrots, all preserved from plentiful harvests. But now those once reliable pantry items are becoming the next front line in a growing food crisis. Processing plants in California, Arizona, even Michigan are facing a shortage of raw produce. In 2025, many vegetable farms opted out of early supply contracts, not because they didn't want to grow, but because they had no idea if they'd have enough water, enough labor, or enough stability to get through the season. Some co-ops in California's Central Valley have already announced a 30% cut in supply to processing facilities, and the ripple effects are being felt far earlier than expected. Major canned vegetable brands are quietly tweaking what's inside the can, sourcing cheaper, lower quality ingredients, or reducing portions while raising prices. Retailers are stuck between a rock and a hard place, either eat the loss to keep prices stable or hike prices and risk alienating their shoppers. This isn't just about a few cans no longer costing 99 cents. It's about the middle-class family trying to keep dinner healthy for their kids, the elderly person relying on frozen meals, the college student living off canned food in a dorm. All of them are starting to feel the squeeze of a world they thought was dependable, a world of affordable, accessible vegetables. You might think, just buy fresh. But try doing that in the Midwest in January. Add in the gas money, the time, the shelf life concerns, and you'll realize that canned vegetables aren't just food. They're a symbol of convenience, of national strength, a comfort that's quietly eroding. In low-income neighborhoods, food pantries are already reporting overwhelming demand for canned vegetables, but not enough supply to meet it. One volunteer summed it up bluntly: "We don't have enough veggies to feed this community." And that's a red flag for any society, because when a food so essential and so often overlooked becomes unstable, we have to start questioning everything we assumed was permanent, especially the items we believed would never run out, and yet now they may soon become part of a survival race in a grocery aisle that's getting more expensive by the day. Tomatoes. You probably used to think of a tomato as nothing more than a slice on your sandwich or a bright pop in your salad. But now even the humble tomato, once the most ordinary thing in your kitchen, is becoming a high-risk item, forcing both sellers and shoppers to ask, can I still afford this? Tomatoes were never considered a luxury, or at least not in the minds of American consumers. They used to grow year-round from California to Florida, always within reach. But by mid-2025, the situation has started to boil over. Prolonged drought, rising electricity bills for irrigation, surging fertilizer costs, and a sudden drop in immigrant labor have all collided. In California's Central Valley, some of the country's largest tomato farms are slashing 40-50% of their planting area, not because the soil went bad, but because they simply can't pay the electric bills, fuel costs, or labor wages. But the harshest truth, it's not just the land that's missing, it's the people. The farm workers, mostly immigrants who used to pick thousands of tomatoes per day, are gone, swept away in sudden immigration raids. What's left a handful of locals who don't know how to pick or sort, and processing plants, forced to halt operations due to lack of supply. As a result, labor costs have doubled, and that cost is landing squarely in your shopping cart. A 14-ounce can of crushed tomatoes that once sold for under $1. Now it's pushing past $1.50, and the explanation you'll hear: input costs have gone up. But it doesn't end there. With fewer fresh tomatoes available, restaurants and fast food chains are switching to imports from Mexico or Central America, which cost more, taste different, and still can't bring prices down. One pizza shop owner in Denver said customers say the sauce doesn't taste the same, but we can't afford to lower the price. The average shopper may never hear the farmer's side of the story, but they're feeling it anyway in stores where tomatoes show up later, look wrinkled, or wear a sticker with a price 30% higher than last year. That $3.99 jar of pasta sauce. It's $4.99 now, and no product takes a price hike quietly. Even worse, higher price, lower quality. More customers are noticing that frozen or pre-processed tomatoes taste sour or flat, a sign that producers are cutting corners with cheaper, lower quality varieties. The feeling like you've been duped. Meanwhile, tomato farmers, once proud of their rows of deep red fruit, now wonder if next year's loan will be enough to keep the farm alive. Some are switching to green beans, peanuts, or just leaving the land empty. And they're warning if these farms shut down by year's end, rural communities will feel the shock, immediately grocery stores closing, schools, shrinking towns falling behind. Even if consumers never see the abandoned fields themselves, they'll feel it every time their debit card balance drops lower at checkout. First it was eggs, then it was meat. Now even tomatoes, the thing you never thought twice about, come with hesitation and hard math. And that creates a ripple effect. The overflowing grocery bags of the past now feel heavier on the wallet than in the arms. When food becomes distant, the tomato, a symbol of abundance in modern agriculture, teeters on the edge. But the real danger isn't just losing salad toppings. It's this: Americans are quietly losing their access to good food, healthy meals, and the basic right to choose quality, all because the very system they helped build is falling apart. And if tomatoes, once the soul of countless dishes, are now fighting for space in your budget, then brace yourself. The next item on the chopping block might be something even more basic. Something people still assume is guaranteed, just because it flows from a tap. Bottled water. Water used to be the one thing you never thought twice about at the grocery store. It was there, always, cheap, reliable, but now you're starting to notice the bottles that once felt invisible on the shelf are quietly becoming something you hesitate to reach for. In the middle of an agricultural crisis, who's thinking about water, and yet it's that very crisis that's pushing bottled water into a troubling new spotlight. On one side, major farming regions are battling over a shrinking supply of irrigation water. California has tightened water rights so severely that many farmers have had to shut down their pumps entirely. On the other side, massive bottling companies often located near clean water sources are being blasted for siphoning away public resources just to resell them at a premium. That tension has led to the inevitable bottled water is getting more expensive. But it's not just about price, it's about how familiar brands are suddenly missing from the shelves. In the Southwest, grocery chains are reporting shortages of large pack bottled water. Some shipping companies have warned of delivery delays due to soaring fuel costs, driver shortages, and a spike in demand during extreme heat. A 48-pack that used to sell for $3.99. Now it's double if you can even find it. What's worse, in disaster-prone areas where bottled water is a literal lifeline during floods or wildfires, local officials are saying they can no longer stockpile the supplies they used to. And when a crisis hits, what happens when the most basic necessity is no longer guaranteed? Farmers don't sell water, but they need it to live, to plant, to keep American agriculture alive. Without it, they're left watching cracked soil, dying crops, and a way of life vanish before their eyes. Consumers, meanwhile, are starting to feel that fear in a different way, one small plastic bottle at a time. And if something as simple as water, once the symbol of equality and access, is now being priced and rationed, just imagine what's coming for the products that are supposed to replace nutrition when real food runs low. Supplements and protein powders. Supplements, protein powders, nutrition bars, daily multivitamins used to be seen as luxury items for gym rats, the wealthy or folks living that wellness lifestyle. But today they've quietly become staples for ordinary families, aging parents who need digestible protein, working class adults, skipping meals, and even malnourished kids in low-income communities. That's why the recent instability in this product category isn't just a concern for TikTok influencers or fitness clubs anymore. Flip over any tub of protein powder and read the label soy milk, eggs, oats. In other words, nearly every arm of America's food supply chain, farms, dairies, processors, is represented in that 2 or 3 pound container. So when that chain breaks down, when farmers stop planting, when dairy shipments falter, the price of that 1 scoop of protein in your morning shake becomes an alarming equation. In just the first half of 2025, several major protein brands have announced price hikes due to raw material costs, logistics challenges, and adjustments in production structure. But the deeper truth, factories are no longer getting steady supplies from American farmers. One Iowa-based soy protein plant had to shut down for 3 weeks because of a shortfall in raw beans, a result of extreme weather and a shrinking labor pool. A whey protein supplier in Wisconsin recently cut production by 40% because they couldn't secure enough milk, not because farms disappeared, but because cold storage and refrigerated trucking networks are stretched beyond their limits. Americans aren't buying protein because they want to look fit. They're buying it because it's fast, affordable, and efficient in a time when a hot meal has become a luxury for working families. People juggling 2 jobs, people who can't afford red meat patients recovering from illness. These are the ones now being priced out of the one thing that helped them stay afloat. And while shoppers stress over the price tag on a canister of powder farmers, the ones who risked everything to produce the raw ingredients are silently mourning. The profits go to multinational corporations. Meanwhile, many of those same farmers can't even afford to buy the products made from their own labor. A scoop of protein used to symbolize strength. Now it's a stress test for a food system on the edge. And if even the backup plan, the thing we turn to when fresh food fails, starts slipping out of reach, then maybe it's time we admit the truth. Nothing is secure when agriculture is left unprotected. You don't have to be a farmer to feel the pain of American agriculture. Just take a look at your grocery receipt this week and compare it to last month. You'll see we're losing more than just a few cents. We're losing the very foundation that once guaranteed the American dinner table. The thing that made us believe we'd never go hungry in this country. If things keep heading down this road, how long before a carton of eggs, a bottle of water, or a tub of protein powder becomes a luxury item? And when that happens, who can we really count on if even our own country can no longer protect its food supply? This video does not promote division or fear. Everything shared here is meant to inform, analyze, and bring awareness to the real challenges facing American agriculture. We fully respect the Constitution of the United States and all federal regulations. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss future episodes where we talk about the stories mainstream media often ignores. The analysis in this video is based on current data and an independent perspective. It's not meant to be a prediction or fear-mongering. Our hope is simple, that this information helps our communities make smarter, more informed decisions before it's too late.